I don't think that there is really even an interest there, sadly. I think that it's indicative of a group of people who are, you're either all or nothing. You are either pure enough in their eyes, whatever that means, and whatever barometer with which they're choosing to measure a person by, or you're canceled. I think that's and it's a dangerous place, and it's something that doesn't represent the freedom of thought and the freedom of speech that we should celebrate in this country.
When you were doing congressional hearings on quite literally anything, did you often feel, and because I think a lot of people now feel this way, that the whole thing is just theater, that it's not really...
So much of it is.
Because believe me, I watched enough of the social media stuff especially, and it's like there are guys up there saying things that I agree with on the social media front, especially Ted Cruz kept hitting the stuff that I really think is right. And yet I'm going, but nobody's doing anything. So you're saying, okay, Jack from Twitter broke the law because he lied under oath about shadow banning or whatever the specific thing might be. But it's like no one does anything. So it's just like this dog and pony show, like, oh, we're all pretending to go to work and then we have drinks together and then that's it.
Yeah, so much of it is absolutely political theater and just for show. And I think that there's an opportunity to hold more leaders accountable given how much more access to, through, I think this is where social media can be used in a positive way, is to be able to not allow this kind of stuff to go unchecked and say, hey, we're tracking. So, okay, you're complaining about this. Where's the bill? Have you talked to your colleagues about trying to pass this legislation? Are you building support for it? Rather than just saying, okay, well, I'm gonna put out a statement and then fundraise off that statement, but not actually do anything about it. And again, this elections thing, I keep going back to it because, we're living through it now. And if all the people who were complaining about it now had actually stepped up as leaders and said, okay, we have a big election coming up, let's fix these problems before the election happens. There's bipartisan agreement that this is a big issue.
Yeah.
It should have been fixed before this massive election in 2020 that we all knew was coming.
It's so interesting because I said on the show this morning, it's like I'm completely against violence, political violence, either way, for sure, full stop, like no doubt. And yet the people that are doing some of this stuff, who've been called Nazis and racists, who said, okay, who see videos online of what may be election tampering and all of this stuff, and they're told they're not supposed to see what they see, or they don't see it, or they're conspiracy theorists, and then we'll get to more of this in a moment, but then we lock people in their houses and we don't let them to go to work. It's like, that's what I mean when I said earlier, it sort of all felt like it was gonna end up here in a weird sense, that we've just ramped up the crazy in so many ways that, well, people storming the Capitol, again, not condoning it, but it's like, of course it was going to happen.
Well, we have to understand how we got here and why we got here. One of the things that has so frustrated me in our politics that I've seen throughout my time in Congress is how reactive our so-called leaders are. They're not actually leaders who are exercising good judgment and foresight to see, okay, if we do this, then it's likely to end up with a certain consequence. And in situations like this, I think we'll see a lot of reaction start to come out of it, but probably not a whole lot of introspection to say, hey, how did we get here? So that we can make sure that we shift course, that we correct course, and try to get back on track to prevent this kind of situation from worsening or happening again. That's really where the leadership comes in, that we, the American people, need. We've needed all along, and we especially need at this moment.
Yeah, so I want to go into a couple of the things, because you kind of went out in a blaze of glory, just like saying everything that you believe, at least a whole bunch of it at the very least, and putting these bills forward and everything else. But before we get into the specifics of that, I'm curious, do you sense that someone like you has a future in the Democratic Party? I get your frustrations with Democrat, Republican, left, right, and all that kind of thing. But Do you sense that sort of the more moderate, anti-war, don't want government doing absolutely everything Democrat, does that exist anymore?
It's becoming more and more rare in Washington, I think, and I don't think this is a recent phenomena. But if I look at, the interactions that I've had with people throughout my campaign for president, the conversations and the social media and discussions that are occurring across the country with people scratching their heads at kind of the crazy things that Congress is choosing to prioritize and take action on, I think that there are a majority of people, maybe most people, who are hungry for some leadership based on common sense and leadership that values our fundamental freedoms as Americans in the United States of America. We're not all going to agree on everything, or maybe even many things, but I know that we are better when we are able to come together and have honest and real discussions, even bringing our differences to the table when we are centered and focused on what we can do together for the betterment of our country.
So do you sense, though, that can happen with kind of the new wing of the Democrats? Like, I don't know if you were ever in like a sit down with AOC and Ilhan and Rashida and the rest of them, but do you sense, if you came in like on what I would call your extremely moderate position on abortion that almost everyone on the left would have agreed with, literally 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, where now you would just you'd be called an evil Republican or an evil conservative or worse for having that position. Do you sense that they're willing to have those conversations? I don't think it's the moderates that are having the problem with the conversation.
I don't. I don't think that there is really even an interest there, sadly. I think that it's indicative of a group of people who are, you're either all or nothing. You are either pure enough in their eyes, whatever that means, and whatever barometer with which they're choosing to measure a person by, or you're canceled. I think that's and it's a dangerous place, and it's something that doesn't represent the freedom of thought and the freedom of speech that we should celebrate in this country.
So with that in mind, I saw an awful lot of people on Twitter, and although I do say Twitter is not real life, I saw a lot of people when you were campaigning saying, man, if Tulsi would just say she's a Republican, she'd have a lot more support. That in essence, you would be sort of a more libertarian-minded, centrist Republican, something like that. And again, I get it, the two-party thing and all that. But if you were to have a political future, like, would that make some sense to you?
It's not something I've given thought to, and I don't know. I think, again, I point to some deeper challenges that we need to address as a people and as a country, and that we need to look to our leaders to bring about this deeper kind of spiritual change that's got to come from the heart, where there's a shift towards working for and serving the people rather than purely being motivated by political ambition, greed, power, and all the selfishness that frankly is driving so much of our politics today.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.